started my career in September of 1972. I was always fascinated with police cars, and back in when I was a kid, we got model cars, and I'd turn every one of them into a police car of some sort. Law enforcement just always was what I was fascinated by. I'd go home from school and turn on the TV and watch Broderick Crawford and Highway Patrol. That was the highlight of my day. I actually started about 2 weeks shy of my 21st birthday. I was 20 years old, and started here in this department as a reserve deputy. The thing is, the first night I came in as a reserve, it was a Friday night in September. Hot, summer, muggy day, and it was a Friday, and it was Friday night football. And my first assignment was to park cars at a football game at one of the county schools. And the parking lot was dirt, and it was hot and muggy, and and I was loving every minute of it. We hadn't even pulled out of this parking lot till one of the deputies turned around and said, "Why would you do this? And why would you spend money out of your pocket to buy that uniform and come out here on a Friday night? You're a young man, single, and come out here on a Friday night and work for no pay." And I said, "Because one day I want to be sheriff." And I was 20 years old. I grew up in the barbecue business. That's why we moved here in 1960. My dad and a couple of his brothers went in the barbecue business here, and so I grew up in that business. I was 8 years old, and by the time I was 11 or 12, I was washing dishes and mopping floors. And by the time I got in high school, I was on the cooking line helping them cook. They all retired in the mid to late 80s, and everywhere I went, people, "Man, I wish one of y'all would open back up, open back up." So 93, things were getting sort of discouraging at work. Had an opportunity to buy this restaurant, and so we bought it and went back in the barbecue business. And yeah, we had the restaurant a little over 22 years. We closed at 8. I'd get off at 5. I'd go by and hang out there till closing time, help them, in the kitchen. Sort of my golf. I didn't have a hobby, so that was sort of my, I said, give me a spatula and I can concentrate on cooking, and I don't think about all this other mess. So that was another chapter in our life, I guess.
What about the wrestling?
My wrestling? It comes back to, some kids want to be astronauts and some of them want to be what I wanted to be two things, a cop and a wrestler. So I got the privilege to have the opportunity to try both of them. But NWA, National Wrestling Alliance. I was in a few main events, so I guess I was doing okay. I started actually when I had started work here when I was about 21. A police officer full time, I was a college student, and I was a wrestler. So, but yeah, that was an enjoyable experience. That was my man, Dr. Death, and my boots.
Were you good?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Were you good?
Well, I think I was good. When I started my career in 1973, I was 6 weeks out of the police academy, and I was involved in a deadly force situation where I had to shoot a guy. Back then we didn't deal with it like we do today. That happened at 12:35 a.m. on June the 8th, 1973, and I remember it like it was last night. No counseling, just another day at the office. I became a workaholic. Basically that's the way I coped with that. As long as I stayed busy, I could deal with it. If I ever got idle, I'd start getting, feeling the depression and all the other things that go along with post-traumatic stress like that. So I just had to learn how to manage it on my own, so I became a workaholic, and that's one reason I never had hobbies, or that's one reason I'm still working here at 70.